scheduled start time.
Sounds like a
So,
plan. Are you looking forward to Memorial Day or have any fun plans for the weekends?
well, yes, I'm going to. Hello, everyone. We're live. We are just chatting for a minute until we officially get started. So feel free to, listen to our little chit chat that we have going on. So we're talking about the Memorial weekend, and Dr. Annette asked me, if I had plans. So my plans are Saturday. I'm going to power wash my porches and my patio and my shed. Very exciting. I'm so excited about it. I love to power wash, and I'll probably do something fun in the afternoon. And then Sunday, I think I'm going over to my daughter's son-in-law's and hang out with my them and my granddaughters and swim. They have a pool if it's warm enough. And Monday, I'm going to work with my colleague. We decided that it would be a good day to work because it's quiet, and so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
How about you?
understand that. Well, I'm hoping to go to the Boulder Creek Festival that happens every year. It's 4 days. There's live music, there's food, there's lots of things to see, and kind of just it's usually a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Boulder's such a cool area. And it's
Definitely.
beautiful. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that the smoke from the fires from Colorado have cleared up a bit. So now there's fresh air to breathe, which is always nice.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a nice weekend and get some good fun and relaxation and rest and all those things. Because anybody that has their own business knows we work many hours. Not complaining, it's just a fact. And so, and we were talking earlier, by the way, everybody out there, I'm going to get started officially here in a minute, but we're a little bit, both of us are a little sleep deprived today for for different reasons, but bear with us today. And so let's try to get some rest over the weekend too, which I definitely am going to try to do. So, okay, let's get started officially. So welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you being here with us, and we know you're going to find this session today helpful. This is a great topic for nonprofits. So I'm Libby D, nonprofit champion and founder of Libby D and Associates. Through visioning and strategy work, leadership coaching, development support, and organizational and board development, our nonprofit leader clients successfully raise more money and have more impact. But not all nonprofits can afford to hire a consultant, so I created the Nonprofit Coffee Talk as a way to provide great content with great guests and helpful information to as many nonprofit people as I can. I hope you find it useful. Please always feel free to suggest other topics or speakers that you would like me to have on, especially if that's you. So reach out to me. I am really excited to have as a guest today, Dr. Annette Shtivelband. Sorry, see, I told you. I practice and practice.
You did just fine.
Dr. Annette Shtivelband, which is a beautiful last name, founder and principal consultant with Research Evaluation Consultant, LLC, here today to discuss how evaluation can help nonprofit organizations. I am so excited about this topic.
Me too. I am incredibly thankful to be here. I love that you have this resource for the nonprofit community where everyone can learn from each other. I know that I am an evaluator and I've been doing evaluation for over the last 15 years from a lot of different angles. But like any field, folks may have different perspectives or experiences or even recommendations, and not every nonprofit is the same. And so I'm just so honored to be able to speak with you and share some of my learnings as an evaluator.
Yes, and I'm going to introduce you formally in a minute, but I just want to say that one of the things I'm most excited about is, dispelling some fear of the word evaluation and the topic, because I think that there's a lot of that out of there, misunderstanding of what it means, and just fear, being afraid of doing it or doing it wrong, or whatever. So I really appreciate you being on today.
Absolutely. The way I like to tell people what I do for a living is essentially I get paid to ask and answer questions. Hopefully that might help dispel some of those fears that folks may have. But I'm also happy to discuss other things that we've recommended to our clients to kind of approach evaluation and really do the best they can to show how they're making a difference.
Yeah, I love how you make it just very accessible, evaluation. And it's really important, right? And that word evaluation just has so much context that I think ends up being very formal and scary and all those things. So I really appreciate that you're here today to help with that. So I'm going to introduce you officially. Dr. Annette Shtivelband is the founder and principal consultant of Research Evaluation Consulting. She received her doctorate in applied social psychology with a specialization in occupational health psychology, which focuses on the health and well-being of people at work. I love that.
Me too.
That's wonderful. We could do a show on that too. Anyway, we could have a whole conversation about that. Over the last 15 years, Annette has worked with social sector agencies and purpose-driven organizations to help them ask and answer meaningful questions. Annette excels in all things related to data and can communicate effectively with people from all walks of life. Using both quantitative and qualitative approaches, also scary words, she knows how to make evaluation actionable, useful, and relevant. She has led her organization for 8 years, and they provide quality research and evaluation services. And in her spare time, Annette enjoys traveling, reading, cooking, and dancing. Awesome. Welcome officially.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you for being here and spending time. Okay, everybody out there, please put your questions in the chat wherever you are on LinkedIn or Facebook. Those questions will come through to us. I'll monitor them and ask them of Annette. So feel free to engage a little bit with us. So let me ask you the first question to get us started, and then we're going to have a really great conversation. Why is evaluation important for nonprofit organizations?
Evaluation is important because it helps an organization tell their story, and it provides you with evidence for what is working well and what can be improved. And so for a lot of different nonprofit organizations, they're doing their best to serve their respective communities. And sometimes things change. You could be implementing the same program and seeing a lot of success, but then something like a worldwide pandemic happens and you need a pivot. And perhaps you need more information to figure out what might be the most effective strategy to pivot. And so really, evaluation is a tool to help your organization excel at what you're already doing, and also to get funding and to make decisions, and in some ways just make sure everyone's on the same page as well.
Yeah, it's sort of like getting clear on, nonprofit people work so hard. I say they're the hardest working people in a sector, of any sector, right? Like I believe that. You need to know, like, is all that effort getting you the outcomes for the people that you work with, or the animals, or the environment that you're trying to achieve, right? And so it really does all those things that you just said, and also it helps with morale, right? Am I being effective? It's nice to have things to celebrate, to be clear and see, oh, we were successful, So, and also course correct, like you said. What if we find out something we're doing is not getting us the results that we want? We get to stop doing that and do something that works better. So I love all that you said. Thank you for that. So, I think somewhere in in this conversation, I do want to kind of talk about, and maybe we do that now, what does evaluation mean? Like, when we say evaluation and things like qualitative and quantitative and data, things like that, I think people are like, what is that, right? And they think that they have to hire, and spend a lot of money getting, things like that in place. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does that mean for nonprofits? What should they be focused on?
Absolutely. So when we think about the term quantitative, that typically represents numbers. So from a scale from 1 to 5, or maybe it's categorical information. So pick one of the following options. Or maybe it's something you're already tracking in your CRM or your donor
Mhm.
platform. How many people donated at your annual fundraising events? Qualitative data is more open-ended text. So it could be something like an anecdotal story that your marketing team heard from some of your clients. It could be more formal from focus groups or interviews, or maybe an open-ended question from a survey that you use. And so essentially, quantitative and qualitative is just a fancy way to say, what information do you have that can hopefully answer some critical questions for your organization? And some organizations already have a wealth of information at their fingertips. It's just a matter of how do we use this information? Others
Mhm.
might need to ask new questions, or maybe work with a staff member who has that knowledge or foundational skill. Or maybe sometimes it's time to work with an external evaluator like myself, because maybe you
Mhm.
want a fresh perspective. You want to lean
Mhm.
on us for the expertise that we have. And I know with REC, we try to do the heavy lifting for our clients, so that way they can focus on the areas that they might be more passionate about, because we're really passionate about data. So, it's definitely one of those things where it can be as simple or complex as you want. On the complex side of things, you can run statistical analyses and see whether or not something's statistically significant. But kind of on the simpler side of things, how many people did you serve at that event that you offered yesterday? And how do you create a way to track that information so that when you're sharing it with potential donors, or you're going after a grant, you can say, we served X number of people today, or we have a program and it was implemented 12 times over the year. And because this program exists, we're seeing these results. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
It is super helpful. And, organizations, nonprofit organizations, and other organizations are collecting a lot of data already. And it, I would assume that that's sort of the place to start, right? Like, what data do you have already? What have you
Yes.
been capturing? And let's look at it and see what we can see out of it. And maybe from there, either, stop collecting some data that really isn't important, or
Yes.
or adding a little bit of other ways to collect some different data. I mean, I think we get a little freaked out in the nonprofit sector about all this, but it's not much more than that. It's like, what do you want to know?
Right.
Are you collecting it already, or how can you get it? And then really the important piece, I think, and I would love you to weigh in on this, is what do you do with that data? Like, once, what are you doing with it? Storytelling is so critical. And you can tell a lot of stories with data. What else? Should they be doing, and how often, and how can they use their data to really drive, their work into the future in a positive way?
Absolutely. And to add to that, because I agree with everything that you just shared, especially the piece about if you're not using data, then maybe stop collecting it, because then you simplify your own processes and systems. But kind of as you think about the data that you have, another important thing to consider is, what questions is my nonprofit trying to answer with the data that we already have or would like or need to collect? because there are infinite questions that you could be asking or trying to answer, but without that kind of clarity, and that clarity could come from a logic model and theory of change, that could be an extension of a strategic plan that you're working on or that already exists. That could be something that's already embedded in the information you have about the program and why it exists. But really having that clarity about what you want to know about whatever it is you're focusing on. So it could be a program, it could be your organization as a whole, it could be in tandem with what a funder wants to know because they're investing in your organization or program. But without that kind of direction and guidance, you might simply be collecting data just for the sake of collecting data, just in case. And I would not recommend that approach.
Yeah, that's the first thing too, right? I would assume is like, what do you want to know? Before you even start collecting data, it's like, what do you want to know?
Absolutely. And typically when we work with clients, part of the first steps are identifying some meaningful evaluation or research questions, because without that kind of guidance, we may not be able to get the information that they're looking for. There may not be alignment. And maybe at those very beginning stages, you might discover that some members of your board want to have a very specific focus and others want to look at something else. And just getting everyone on the same page about, if we're going to spend the time and money and energy collecting data, what do we really truly want to know from this information?
Yeah, that's so important, that notion of garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yes.
I've heard that many times, that nonprofits are collecting lots of data and not doing anything with it. And it gets overwhelming. It's like clutter, right? It's like clutter
Absolutely.
that you have to deal with somehow. Yeah.
There needs to be a Marie Kondo of data cleaning or whatever might be the case. Just simplify the process as much as humanly possible.
Right.
And then you really know where to focus your attention, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's such a good conversation to have with staff. And then with your board, it's like, what's the most important thing that we need to know? What's the most important? And then maybe you say, what's the next most important thing?
Yes.
So I love those conversations, and it's a way for board members to really have to understand what the organization is about and think it through, right, in order to say, what they'd like to know. So it ends up being such a robust conversation.
And
Do
I love
you?
that you're
Uh-huh.
involving the board members in that
Yes.
conversation, because ideally, whether you're doing evaluation internally or with support from an external consultant, you don't want to have it siloed. Evaluation permeates all parts of an organization,
Mm-hmm.
so it informs what decisions the board may make. It
Mm-hmm.
helps inform the programs, and it helps the
Mm-hmm.
executive director make decisions, and the staff have a sense
Yes.
of why they're collecting the data or the information in the first place. And everyone needs to
Mm-hmm.
be part of that conversation and have that kind of understanding of
Mm-hmm.
why the data matters and why specifically the data matters for your organization,
Mm-hmm.
or else there can be some resistance or there can be some tension in collecting that kind of information.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of the best questions, is just, what are the 5 numbers we should always know in our organization?
Well, I'm not sure if there's going to be 5 numbers that an organization should
Yeah.
always know, because
Yeah.
every nonprofit organization is so different, and what
Mm-hmm.
their theory of change or why they exist is going to
Mm-hmm.
vary substantially. I mean, off the top of my head, being able to answer how many unique people have you served over a fiscal
Mm-hmm.
year is usually helpful from an output perspective. But beyond that, you kind of need that North Star of what do we want to know and why does this matter, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think across the organization, they may not have five, right? I do like to have them, like if they're actively involved in fundraising, which they all are, there's a couple there. There's a couple numbers there that they should always know. And, I do like that conversation about, get deeper than just outputs, right? Let's get to the, especially for programs, right, in the organization. So,
Right.
we have served this many, and yeah, I like to pose it this way. So what? And it's not like a sarcastic so what, it's so what happens? So what then? So right, we serve this many people, and this is getting into logic model stuff. I won't go too far down this rabbit hole. We serve this many people, so what? So
Right.
that some of them, learned and changed what they were doing, learned a new thing, I don't know. You once you get to the point where you can't answer the so what question, you're kind of at the end, right, of the logic model with the long-term outcomes, right? So I
Exactly.
love just that so what question. Just keep
And
asking it. So what?
I love that too. And I think that in working with a lot of nonprofits, what I've seen is there's more of a focus on those outputs. So,
Yes.
how many programs do we have? How many trainings? How
Yep.
many people have we provided this program to? But back to that so what question, what seems to be missing is because we offered this program, what improved, what changed? How did it make a difference in the lives of our community? And I think that's where organizations and nonprofits especially can be a lot more competitive and secure larger funding when they can go beyond
Yes.
outputs to outcomes, because they again are focusing more on how what they're offering is making a positive difference, and that differentiates them from other similar nonprofits that are maybe only saying every year we offer 12 trainings in this very specific area.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of like, why do you offer 12 trainings? I
Right.
and logic models are so good to have for your programs. And I encourage all nonprofits to put one together or more than one. Um, and funders are impressed when they see your logic model, when they can see the logic in your program and how you move people from starting to interact with you all the way to achieving some outcomes is so strong. And then community impact too, that's what donors really want to know is, how are you improving the community or communities that you serve?
Right.
So it's
And
also it's so important.
but sometimes in making a logic model and theory of change, you start to realize that some of the activities that you're providing don't even align with kind of your overarching goals
Yes.
as an organization. So it helps you also take a step back and evaluate whether you might
Yes.
want to pivot or go a different direction.
Yes, exactly. And always asking yourself, how is this activity, whatever it is, helping us to achieve the outcomes we want to achieve? And that is a good challenge. I love this conversation. So I think, can we spend like the last few minutes here just kind of talking about like in a nonprofit, a few things, right? How do you start? Who should be involved? And what is one thing I want to end with this? What's one thing you wish nonprofit organizations knew about working with somebody like you?
Of course. So, in terms of starting your evaluation journey, I think that having conversations amongst your staff and your board and your leadership about what you're hoping to learn from evaluation, whether you're conducting it in house or with support externally, I think that is a really good starting point. And also just taking inventory or stock of what information or data do you already have available? Have you previously done any evaluation work, and what was learned from that process? And what, if anything, would you do differently the next time around? But just really kind of having that intentionality would be kind of that first starting point. And then thereafter, coming up with some questions that you would hope to answer from an evaluation. That way, back to the whole infinite questions you could ask, it will kind of provide you with the direction that you need to focus your energies and your resources given all your other commitments. In terms of working with an external evaluator like myself with REC, I think a lot of times it's important to know kind of that what you're hoping to gain from that relationship, just like any type of engagement or partnership with others. You might discover that some people will focus more on something called evaluation capacity building, which is helping organizations or nonprofits learn how to do evaluation themselves in-house. Other times, we have clients where they defer to our expertise. They focus more on the programs, and they would rather have someone from the outside do that support for them. And sometimes actually funders look more favorably on external evaluation because we're a third party, objective. We're going to say what the data is. We don't have the same inherent biases that an internal person may have. Though people are inherently flawed too, so I can't say that fully and accurately because every evaluator is a little different. But just kind of seeing who you trust and seeing whether you feel like this person will meet you during a difficult time where maybe the data isn't showing what you hoped it was showing. But where do you go from here? How do you make your organization or your program better with this information? Are you willing to kind of accept what the data is saying? And then just kind of working together to create strategies and kind of having that sort of bond and trust. So those are kind of the things that come to my mind in working with an external evaluator, and just even evaluating the evaluation process. Is this working for us? Are we getting actionable results? Are we happy with the final deliverables? So there's just a lot of different ways to approach it.
Yeah, that's such a great, thank you for all that. That was really good and very helpful. I know I'm hearing audio issues on my end, so I apologize if our audio is bad. We were talking before we went live that we both have been having some challenges with our connections. So apologies if you're experiencing that too out there. So I think just asking yourselves good questions and being curious is so important, right? In your nonprofit. So like, the first question is sort of like, is what we're doing working like we think? How is it working? How well is it working? And those kinds of things. For how many people? And also, this is just so important. It's so important to be a learning organization, and we hear that thrown around too. But this is what that means. It means being curious and digging in and seeing if what you are assuming is happening, is it happening? Are you getting the results, outcomes, whatever you want to call them, that you want? And if not, maybe trying something different and seeing if that works, right? And that's being a learning organization, being willing to on a regular basis, really see, what do we want to happen? What results or outcomes do we want to get? And are we getting that? And maybe putting in a course correction where you're not getting what you want. It's really kind of that simple. It sounds simple when we say it. It is, it is some work, but why are you, why do all that activity if you don't really know if it's working? And so I encourage folks out there to if they haven't done this yet, just start with one thing. Start with one thing. Just ask one thing. Is this particular program or this class or this whatever it is, strategy, whatever, what is it we want it to do, and is it doing that? And then dig in around that. That is great. And also, you're right. It's helpful to have an outside expert because They aren't in it every day and can see things that the staff no longer sees because they're working in it every day, and can ask those questions as well and kind of analyze it from a very objective perspective, which doesn't happen with staff and board much. So it's wonderful.
Absolutely. Maybe a good analogy is going to see a counselor. So you spend 24/7 with yourself, but sometimes you need to go to someone else to kind of get some feedback, to reflect, to kind of think about things in a different way so that you can kind of improve your life and be a better version of yourself. And so in the same capacity, working with an external evaluator like myself, gives you that same opportunity to work with an expert to kind of figure out what's working, what could be better so that your organization can be a better version of itself.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And we've, I think also in nonprofits, people think that an evaluator is going to cost them, a lot. And that's not necessarily true. It can be just a one-time engagement. It can be, very much worth a little bit of money, to figure out like what you're doing. It's a huge, it's an investment in the right things. It's an investment in helping you do better and get better outcomes. So I want to
Absolutely.
put a plug in for that. Yeah,
And
it's
to kind of,
important.
oh, sorry, to add to that, I would say I've seen time and time again that when an organization works with REC or just an external evaluator, they actually get more money. Surprise! Having evidence of impact means that funders and sponsors and donors are going to be more likely to give to your organization. So I love that you called it an investment because that is typically the where the foundation is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like the days of just getting grants based on big numbers, like we're going to serve 5,000 people. Well, that doesn't matter if none of them achieve an outcome, so that those days are over. Funders they want the real story. They want to know, how the work of a nonprofit is affecting the individuals they serve and the community. They want to know. And you need to be able to tell them that. And it will increase your funding. It will increase the number of donors who will give to you. It's really about that. It's great stuff. Okay, this has been amazing. And we're at the end. It goes by so fast. I am going to put in the chat your contact information. I'll put, for those of you out there, the contact information. And then if you want to go on social media and put stuff in there, please feel free. Okay, like just anything you have coming up or anything you want us to know, people out there to know about, please add it in there. And those of you out there, please ask questions in the chat wherever you are, and we'll get that answered for you. So thank you so much for being here today. This was great.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate it.
Libby. I really enjoyed our conversation. And again, I just really admire what you're doing with the nonprofit coffee talk and all the work and resources that you also provide to the nonprofit community.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. You all join us next week on June 1st. Our guest will be Donald Wells with Wells CPA. And Donald is a nonprofit expert in all things finance. So he's going to talk about nonprofit finance, the things that you should have in place. And it'll be a really great, very practical conversation about nonprofit financials. So please join us. And with that, we're out for today and hope you have a good week. Enjoy your long weekend. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, Annette, for the time today and all your wisdom.
Thank you.